The coronavirus. A series of events recently came together which allowed me to travel to Hawaii with my mother and serve as tour guide on Maui for a week. Ever since the first time I visited the Big Island of Hawaii in 2004, it has been a dream of my mother's to accompany me on a trip to the land of Lulu. For the past 15 and a half years, the question has hung in the air. When? When will our schedules coincide to make this trip together? It just so happened an opening in both our schedules made this trip possible practically 2 days before all hell broke loose with the coronavirus. Deciding to ride the public buses on our first 3 days of the trip before picking up a rental car for the remaining 5 days, on our second day on Maui, they had begun spraying all the buses with disinfectant after every trip, and whispers of a looming panic had just begun to sprout legs. It happened overnight, between March 10th and 11th, this quantum leap in widespread fear and panic, and later that night, when I had heard the NBA had suspended its season, and the NCAA tournament had been canceled, and every other possible venue which allowed people to come together had either been suspended or closed, or was in the process of one or the other, my first thought was that the New World Order has finally come out of the shadows. The global plot to fully realize the Orwellian nightmare of a fascist, totalitarian police state has chosen this moment in history to show its hand, and it's only a matter of time before enough people wake up to it now. They have to. How can they not? Never have I been so certain of anything in my life. Not that enough people will wake up to this unconscionably brazen act of evil that will beyond a shadow of doubt completely destroy the entire economic system the world over, but that this is in fact evil, that evil itself has made its most conspicuous move on the world stage since 9/11. The coronavirus is real, and it is a real threat to people's health, but surely enough people will wake up to the fact that the answer to combating the virus isn't to crash the world's economy. At least that part is obvious, right? Global conspiracies aside, whether you believe in them or not is almost immaterial. It's human nature to conspire. Consider your workplace politics, or if you're on a local council board, or know of someone who is. Search your memory and hearken back to your high school days, anyone's high school days. Pick any high school anywhere on the planet and you will find a microcosm of the world. Greed for money, greed for power, greed for control. These impulses are so grotesquely disproportionately growing and blooming in politics, the media, and the corporate world as to be understood. Nevertheless, what is playing out in real time on this earth is still only symptomatic of a greater conflict on the spiritual plane of existence, the ancient war between good and evil. Superficially, there is a global plot which has been picking up steam exponentially since the American and French revolutions. If you couldn't see it after 9/11, and if you couldn't see it after the 2008 financial crisis, and if you can't see it after a cursory investigation of JFK's assassination, if you can't see it now, don't worry about it. You'll never see it, and there's no point in belaboring it here. Its intent is to establish a one-world government and one-world banking system where the people live in perpetual fear and willingly surrender all their freedoms and civil liberties to the governing class in exchange for the governing class keeping them safe. Safe from what? Safe from life itself and all the dangers incumbent to living on this planet. In this case, safe from a virus engineered by various world government agencies, not least of which are the CIA and the Chinese in bed together hatching a plan to crash the global economy by unleashing a biochemical weapon engineered in various labs across China and America. That right there is a no-brainer, and the least controversial thing I will say today. But on the other hand, it's still a diversion, for all of this dog and pony show playing out on the temporal plane of existence is merely a diversion. The 1% of 1% who influence the Federal Reserve and the International Monetary Fund, they are mere puppets for evil. The interdimensional reptilians who have enslaved the human race ever since the extraterrestrials who exhausted their home planet's resources and came to Earth, found the smartest monkey, and decided to manipulate its DNA and genetic code to create humans to serve them as a slave colony on Earth, only for the interbreeding between these extraterrestrials and humans to be cryptically described in the book of Genesis. All of that is mere diversion. What we are witnessing on Earth today is the outpouring, the bleeding into the three-dimensional temporal plane of existence, the spiritual ancient war between good and evil. So before you decide to take a crap in a bag and mail it to your most despised politician, remember, whomever he or she is, they are merely puppets in this dog and pony show, for the real war and the real enemy is evil itself. In case you were still wondering, we had a wonderful time on Maui. We drove the road to Hana twice. It was every bit as beautiful as I remembered it. There was a considerable cloud cover on the summit at Haleakala, which obscured our view both times we made the drive to the top. There were 2 Hawaiian monk seals laying side by side on Hokipa Beach. Trust me, we had a good time. All things considered, the manufactured hysteria over the coronavirus perpetrated by the media taking its marching orders from the government, who in turn take their marching orders from the interdimensional reptilians, who in turn take their marching orders from evil itself. Nevertheless, it's the land of Lulu. How can you not have a good time? We did. It was the first night back after landing in Philadelphia, however, which set into motion a series of events which fill me with an optimism standing in stark relief to the backdrop of the current world. As I was dozing, jet-lagged late into the night, it came to me. God the Father, as conceived and described in the Bible, is infinite eternal consciousness. They are one and the same. Infinite eternal consciousness permeating all of existence, forever and formless. Formless for, if the big is had a form, it would have a limit. And the big is has no limits. The big is having an experience. The mellifluous voice of Alan Watts holding forth, the universe is the cosmic self hiding within creation. The biblical God is wrathful, jealous, prone to angry outbursts, envious of inanimate objects, yet compassionate and loving. The big is runs the whole gamut, the full spectrum of human emotions and behavior and archetypes, because the big is us. We are the big is, playing hide and seek within creation. Which got me thinking again. What will it take for that reunion to happen again at the very heart of existence, which cuts to the very quick of existence itself? For that schism between creator and creation to dissolve, to vanish. It is as clear as day that the universe itself is at war with itself. What will it take for the human race to wake up to the fact that we are all expressions of infinite, eternal consciousness having an experience, because the alternative, infinite, eternal consciousness sitting alone at the picnic table in heaven, twiddling his or her thumbs for all of eternity. Perhaps he or she uses the unisex bathroom in heaven. Perhaps he or she has developed a sense of humor by now. Well, that alternative would bring about a scarcely conceivable, insufferable boredom to the big is in 3 shakes of a lamb's tail. The very day after the night, with a wink and a nod, the big is intimated to me that things aren't always as they seem. Something else remarkable happened. My father and I reconciled. While I was in the land of Lulu, my father began reading the first 100 pages of my book, and we reconciled. It was a long time coming, and something deep and mysterious tells me this is a permanent state of affairs. Something tells me. I know it. As is the case with everything else in life, there are no words. The day after me and my father's reconciliation, I had a phone call with a friend of the family. To preserve his anonymity, I'll call him Guy. Guy is every bit into following the global conspiracy to establish the one world government and one world banking system as I am, and then some. And it's Guy's contention that in the coming weeks and months we will see the communist plot exposed for what it is. Small businesses and large businesses alike will not acquiesce to the government's demands to intentionally crash the world's economy. How could they? At some point, even evil bites off more than it can chew. And this is the moment in history where that has happened. Enough people will wake up to the present attempted coup d'etat and say no. A resounding no, ringing up, out, and through all the dimensions, uttered from the people, heard by the government, the media, reaching the interdimensional reptilians and reaching the spiritual plane of existence, where this ancient war between good and evil is essentially playing itself out. Evil has met its match, and good will prevail. That is Guy's contention, and I want to believe him, and I will. For perception creates reality. If enough of us believe it, we will believe it into existence, for that is how perception works. In 1992, there was a prescient movie titled Sneakers with Robert Redford, Sidney Poitier, and Ben Kingsley. The movie's plot revolved around a group of computer hackers, and in the movie there was a scene that I will never forget. There is a scene where Ben Kingsley's character is telling Robert Redford's character about how perception creates reality. As a perfect illustration of this, he uses the stock market. All it takes is a rumor created out of thin air to tank the economy. A company could, in reality, be doing fine, but all it takes is for someone to start a rumor there or troubles at the company, and once you sow the seeds of doubt in enough investors' heads, stockholders start selling off, panic sets in, the stock price starts tanking, and you no longer have a healthy company. Businesses that do business with that company start seeing the price of their stock dropping, and all of a sudden, you've dramatically changed reality itself. Why? Because perception, whether based upon a previously held reality or truth, or pure rumor, shapes and becomes reality. But there is a flip side to this as well. If enough people wake up to the fact that our government and our media do not have the people's best interest in mind, they never have and never will. And this is the most diplomatic and civil way of putting this truth into words. And that the government and media will do anything, and I mean anything, to advance their power and control over the people by any means necessary, as they always have. If enough people wake up to this fundamental truth, it is not discounting the fact that the coronavirus is a real threat to people with pre-existing conditions and compromised immune systems. We all can accept that. But make no mistake about it, this was intentional. In the mass media, every headline and every news alert and every news article is calculated with the most insidious evil to strike fear into the people of the world. It has nothing to do with sharing information. The intent is to scare the living shit out of people until they are willing to surrender every last shred of freedom in exchange for the government keeping them safe. Breathe. Count to 10. Count to 100. Don't forget that every last one of our public officials are mere puppets for the forces of evil and servitude to evil itself. They know not what they do. Superficially they do, but deep down, true understanding eludes them and will always elude them. But don't let it elude you. We the people are faced with a choice. We can stand up to this. Enough is enough. Evil has had its time on the stage of the world, and it's time for the good to reign. Good with a capital G. The big is, he, she, the big kahuna, wants to know us, wants us to recognize him, wants that reunion more than we can begin to fathom. We are it. It is us. How much longer will the people of the world take it in the ass? March 2020.